It's BANLIST time, everyone! Din 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 din! Din 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 din! BANLIST alarm! BANLIST alarm! Now, we are approaching the BANLIST period, and I want to look at the current Yu-Gi-Oh! Meta in order to determine what can be in the ban list, what I think, and we're gonna do it by looking at the German National Championship, essentially, which should be the last big tournament that we got. But overall, it's just in order to watch the meta, how it is. Now, there's a lot of issues in this meta. It's not too bad in a matter of distribution. Like, it has some variety. The problem is what's in said variety. Now, let's see. As you can see, Snake Eyes is the top deck, essentially, with Tenpai Dragon following right behind it. And then we have Sneak Eye Fire King, Branded Despia, Chimera, Unchained, Rika, Salamangreat, Voiceless Voice, yada yada. Now, what are the criticisms of this meta? So, some people are going against, I think understandably so, against Snake Eyes. Now, Snake Eyes is a pretty recent strategy that has already broke the game. Now, this is not the version with Fire King, but even in this form can be quite powerful. So what they got is essentially a reinforcement of the army, which I believe if they wanna eat Snake Eyes for good, this needs to be at 1, pretty much like reinforcement of the army or the rocket search card. So yeah, just to balance out, because searching Poplar just like that with a 3-off, it's too much. It's too much because, as you can see, even the extra deck, it's pretty stacked, and this can be understandably a problem. Some even said they should put at 1 discard 2. As you can see, it's already at 1 in the OCG and in Master Duel. I think it's fair. Having spell cards that just search pieces or starters for your combo, it's just it's not the greatest. Although Bonfire is not apparently limited in any way in other metagames, which is peculiar, I must say. So yeah, if they got a start somewhere, I think limiting Bonfire and Seeker of Sinful Voice, putting them at 1, can be helpful in some way towards the metagame. So the next big deck is probably Rika. Now, I don't really know about Rika. I just match up against them and I try to play just like that. It's not very professional by me, I know, I'm sorry. But I feel like some changes can be done here too. Like, this whole fact that this deck can run Rivalry of the Warlords, even if it's at 1, I think cards like this should not belong in the game at all, and we'll get to that later because there's other cards this annoying even in a deck I usually play. But yeah, to be honest, one card that can be limited, it's also probably the Ethereum. Like, the Ethereum cards are pretty powerful, so I feel like eating them is not a bad idea in some way. But as I said, I don't know enough about Rika as a player to know what it needs to actually balance out the game. Like, I prefer playing the decks myself in order to understand better, but I never played Rika. But some Rika hits can be expected in some way, although we only saw 3, so I think that the hits don't really need to be too cruel on this, so yeah. Special mention for the Kashtira cards. As you can see, Ferrir is straight up banned in the OCG, and Unicorn is at 1 in the OCG, while we still have these at 3. This is not great, and the reason is mostly Ferrir. Ferrir is a big banish. It's a straight up free body with an already powerful effect. It's kind of frustrating. Like, even the sole fact that it's just a free body you can have, especially at level 7, which can enable some weird fucked up shit like this motherfucker right here. It also allows you to access maybe level 10 synchro summons, or it's just an extra body for your link summoning. Like, you can make the big fish here. It's bad. It's not the great. Another mention is probably Flambert Dragon. Yeah, this card is quite powerful. I saw some people saying we need it banned. I don't think we need it banned. I think that a limit 1 is enough. So yeah, I think it's enough, because at the end of the day, it's a disruption for the deck. I don't feel like removing straight up a negation at this point. Like, I'd put it just at 1 and then see how it plays from there. But yeah. Another honorable mention is Droll and Lockbird. Some people want Droll either limited at 1 or straight up banned. I don't get it personally. Like, Droll and Lockbird is one of the few ways a going second player can rely on in order to have a better chance of survival. And you may argue, yeah, but then you get to pop off. Your opponent has the same amount of chances to draw and use Droll and Lockbird. Big problem about end traps is that people only think about their opponents using it against them, and they never think of any other scenario. It's probably the same thing that brought Maxi to be banned. If you look at it right now, everyone wants Maxi to be unbanned, but the reason people don't want it back in the game, it's because they always think that they need to have then the opponent is just gonna pop off themselves without thinking that they can draw Maxi as well, and they can stop the opponent from popping off. And overall, can't you just build, like, if Droll and Lockbird is such a powerful card, then you are playing the brown deck. Like, at that point, just adapt the meta to two decks that don't lose to Droll and Lockbird if you think Droll and Lockbird is too powerful. Like Maxi, instead of playing heavy combo decks that lose to Maxi, just play a slower deck, like a trap deck or a mid-range deck like branded. Like, people complain a lot about the game giving too many advantages to going first players, and then they want going second cards to be banned or limited. It's something that completely confuses me. Like, it's something, it doesn't make any sense. It's like wanting Ash banned. So yeah, like, you can argue, I don't want the Holy Lockbird, Ash Blossom, it's a much healthier card. I get it, but I also kinda want people to have more ways to play as going second, or to stop the opponent during their turn. Or else, it's actually, if we ban any of these entraps, the game is just gonna be who wins the dice roll and goes first. And at that point, people will complain again. So I feel like banning or limiting roll is just people complaining. Is that a bit harsh? Probably. And now, this is getting a bit more personal. People want Sanctifier and Branded Fusion completely banned, or at least limited to one, because they are tired to lose to the Puppet Lock. Now, you may think I'm biased here, but I don't think that banning Sanctifier and Branded Fusion is gonna really solve anything. First of all, banning Branded Fusion just bounce the deck to die completely, and if you need to balance a game, if you want the game to be balanced over killing completely decks, you are probably not in the right road. Like, that's not how balancing a game works, especially a card game. There's some decks that needed to die in order for the game to be actually healthy again, like for example Kashtira being completely destroyed. It's something that needed to be done because it was way too powerful. Every single card, like, as I said before, Kashtira Ferrir is too powerful of a card alone and needs to be limited in some way. And yeah, there's some decks that need to die in order for the game to become healthy again, and maybe the rest of the deck can become an engine for a much healthier deck. But I feel like Branded is not the case of a deck that needs to die, especially by banning or limiting the main engine of the deck. Like, the best course of action right now, I think, is banning Puppet Nightmare, along with all those cards that have a similar effect. So, for example, Ibli, the Barrier Statues, Banshee, and whatever. But there are a lot of cards, and they never usually ban more than like 5 cards, which personally I think it's very wrong. I think they should just go commando and ban all the problematic cards like all at once. But the most logical course of action right now is banning both Sanctifier and Puppet, and as the ban list go, you ban all the similar cards to Gimmick Puppet Nightmare. So you ban Sanctifier and Puppet, you then ban Ibli and Jinzo, you then ban all the Barrier Statues, and after a bit you put Sanctifier back at 1, because I tried various lists of Branded without Gimmick Puppet Nightmare or any card that works like it. So, and I gotta say, Sanctifier without Gimmick Puppet existing in the game or any similar card similar to it really doesn't achieve anything unless you are using it in order to have a follow-up for your next turn to essentially quick use Albat's effect to fuse to a material you used previously and then just starting off again all the combo. And yeah, aside from that, Sanctifier never really comes out. It really never comes back. It's not this card without cards like Gimmick Puppet are no use. It's pretty much like some months ago we had a problem with Branded Expulsion. That card, without any target to use to lock the opponent, is basically useless. The only way it can have some use is to follow up with some more bodies on the field, but that's something the deck already does enough by itself. This deck can recycle materials as much as it wants, doesn't need to rely on Sanctifier or Expulsion, but Sanctifier can have some uses. Yeah, that's pretty much it. And also, putting Branded Fusion at 1 or banning it, like banning it will just kill the deck entirely. And it doesn't make any sense, it's not a Kashtira level problem. And limiting doesn't really do much because you will still have 3 Aluber, which doesn't make sense, not even in OCG they banned Aluber. You have cards that can recycle back fusion cards, so that would just be a wasted slot in the ban list. Again, just leave it at 3 and ban the actual locking cards, because they're the actual problem. Because these 2 cards without those are pretty much normal cards, they just get the engine going. And if I'm being honest, like the top Brandon in this moment is not even the top deck. It reached top 8, which is good, but it's not a Snake Eyes Kashtira problem. Really, they just need to ban all cards similar to Gimmick Puppet. You can say that even without Gimmick Puppet, you can still run Branded Chimera, which I think is probably one of the best versions of mixed branded around, because it doesn't rely on locking your opponent too much. And even with the new version of Light and Darkness Dragon, you can essentially achieve that anyway in much a cooler fashion, and you don't even need to lock your opponent out. So yeah, that's pretty much all I had to say. Tenpai Dragon. So when this deck came out, I was pretty excited because it looked cool, it played cool, but forcing the battle phase on your opponent, and you do it by having this beast or this beast on the field, it's not the most polite way to end a game. So I feel like that, I don't know precisely what it needs to be done to this deck, because all cards are pretty, like, this is the entirety of the monsters of the deck. They literally play 7 monsters. What the heck do you wanna do more? Like, what you gonna limit everyone so there's just 3 of them? Like, this deck is kinda weird to limit, and we don't need to go just limit and ban everything. We need to approach this logically, because we need to balance the game. but we need to still be playable, because people spend money on this game. You are not fixing the game by making people waste money on banned cards for their tournament decks. So what do you do against this deck? Maybe you limit this card because it's very powerful at defending your fire monsters, so you can do something like at least having them affected by effects during their main phase. And also there's some cards that force the battle phase. I feel like those needs to go as well, because as soon as the players start to realize how powerful those cards may be in this specific deck, they're gonna become problematic, and at least give the opportunity to affect these monsters with effects. And also, to be honest, just get rid of engage. Like it's not the point. I just don't like Sky Striker. Okay, like I feel like Sky Striker is that one deck that once it gets good, it becomes a problem for the meta. It's not a very healthy deck most of the time. So I feel like Sky Striker needs to get the Dragon Rulers treatment, because it's not the best. Other cards that need to be touched in some way, probably something about Labyrinth. We don't have the list, but you know how Labyrinth plays. Some cards may need, maybe not straight up Labyrinth cards, like overall it feels quite normal, but maybe transaction rollback needs to be tuned down a bit. And do I even need to say anything about Eradicator Epidemic Virus? This card is not a Labyrinth card, but is in Labyrinth, and between this and transaction rollback and trap trick and the whole interaction Labyrinth has with trap cards, dark monsters with 2.500 attack that actually like to get in the graveyard. We need to basically not eat maybe Labyrinth directly, but some cards like I don't feel like Labyrinth, in order to win, needs Eradicator Epidemic Virus. There's plenty of actually good trap cards in the game that can be way more healthier than this card. So I feel like this deck can still work even if we get rid of the main problematic cards. Like if I was a Labyrinth player, pretty much like I am a branded player, and I think that the problem card that needs to be banned is the Gimmick Puppet. If I was a Labyrinth player, the cards that need to be limited in some way are not Labyrinth cards, but cards that unintentionally work within Labyrinth and are bad for the game. So even transaction rollback can stay as long as Eradicator Epidemic Virus gets banned. So yeah, that's pretty much all there is to say about the metagame and the cards that actually needs to go. I'm a fool! I forgot about Runic. Yeah, just nuke Runic. Nuke Runic Stan. I'm not even gonna talk about it too much. Just nuke this crap. Get the all at one. Get the fuck out. Overall, the ideal ban list for the current meta will probably be banning Eradicator Epidemic Virus and the Gimmick Puppet Lock. I wanna be merciful and concede Sanctifier for the moment, like for now, but I feel like that we need to follow the course of action of banning all cards similar to Puppet and then unban Sanctifier. But overall, these are the cards that come to mind immediately in need to get banned, and that goes without mentioning like big floodgates like Dimensional Barrier, Rival of the Warlords, Anti-Spell, Fragrance. I feel like cards that lock your opponent out of certain mechanics of the game, like having more type of monsters, activating spell traps as spell traps, or whatever, are never good for the game in general, so they should not be banned. Another card that needs to be banned that I almost forgot to mention is Calamity. Like, I'm talking about Otre Dragon Archfiend King Calamity. This card is already banned on all the formats except TCG for some weird reason. This card can be quite annoying, especially because we have Centurions that can easily summon this card, along with many other synchro decks that can steal wins. Like, even if they're not in the top 8 we saw before, this card is it's never good to have in general. Like, looking at the release date, this card was meant to be a game closer in a game that was much slower, and it was a card that needed to be summoned in the very, very late game, like 10 turns. After 10 turns, you need to build up your strategy in order to get to Archfiend Calamity and win the game from there. But nowadays, cards like this can be brought up so easily. So the choice is either limiting the game mechanics that allow you to essentially summon all these powerful monsters on turn 1, or we ban cards like Calamity, because yeah. Other bans don't really come out in my head. It's overall pretty much limits, which can be done like to Kashtira, to Snake Eyes, to Fire King. But overall, the rest of the decks here are not like, I will ban. This ban list needs to be very much specific. Like, we need to ban specific cards that make current decks problematic, and at that point we don't really have any problem for the future for a bit, unless Konami just decides to print another game-breaking and toxic card for the lols, I guess. There's this Jubel deck that is currently roaming around. I don't think they're gonna ban the new Jubel monster because it's pretty new, and also it's a a very fun service card. They want to sell it as much as possible, so for some months we are gonna have to deal with Jubel. I'm sorry, it feels weird to say it in 2024, but yeah, we need to deal with Jubel. That's pretty much all I had to say about what needs to be limited and banned. There's Fluanderies. I think that their Bacher statue got already banned. So yeah. Also, there's been a comeback of Arch Nemesis Protoss in the last ban list, which is absolutely an incredibly stupid idea. And that card needs to go too. So yeah, that's pretty much everything I had to say about the ban list. I don't really have a wish. I really have an analysis of the current metagame. I usually don't make wishes because if the ban list turns out to be somewhat good, if I don't get what I asked for to be banned or limited, then I get disappointed. Right now I just made an analysis on what can be done in order to balance out the game, but that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching. Bye.